Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we are going to learn about IELTS Speaking Test Part 3. In this lesson, we are going to talk about the topic of trade. Trade. In this lesson, we are going to look at some questions and some sample answers. At the end of this lesson, I'm also going to give you some tips to help you to get a really high band in your IELTS speaking test. But before we begin the lesson, do not forget to subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up if you find it helpful. Also remember, on my channel, you have a lot of videos on other topics such as grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and how to speak English in different situations. So once you have watched this video, just have a look at my playlist, have a look at the rest of the videos in my channel, and I guarantee you that you will find so many videos that are going to help to improve your level of English. Now, let's begin our lesson by looking at question 1. Are you good in trade? Are you good in trade? In this question, the examiner simply wants you to tell him or her whether, in your opinion, you think you're good in trade. Now, you can answer this question by saying, yes, all my friends say that I have a business mindset. I really enjoy buying and selling goods to make a profit as a small-scale businessman trading in second-hand gadgets such as phones. Yes, all my friends say that I have a business mindset. I really enjoy buying and selling goods and products to make a profit as a small-scale businessman trading in second-hand gadgets such as phones. So in that answer, I have confirmed to the examiner that I think I am quite good in trade. And I said, all my friends say that I have a business mindset. Now, to have a business mindset is to be business-minded. Some people are very business-minded. They look at everything in terms of making a profit. So if you're that sort of person, then you are business-minded. You have a business mindset. I really enjoy buying and selling goods. So trade involves buying and selling goods to make a profit, okay? As a small-scale businessman trading in. To trade means to sell, okay? To sell goods to make a profit. Second-hand gadgets are gadgets. Gadgets are electronics that people have already used. Second-hand means that people have already used them, okay? For example, phones. So in that answer, I have not simply said, yes, I'm good in trade. No, I said, yes, I'm good in trade, and then I explained the reasons why. Remember, this is part 3, so you need to provide elaborate answers. Now let's move on to question 2. What products does your country export abroad? What products does your country export abroad? In that question, the examiner wants you to identify some goods that your country sells abroad. To export is to sell abroad, okay? To sell overseas is to export, okay? What products does your country export abroad? Abroad means overseas to other countries? What products does your country sell to other countries? Now, you can answer that question by saying, my country is renowned for its export of agricultural goods and products, for instance, coffee and tea, as well as spices, for example, cumin, garlic, turmeric, and curry powder. My country is renowned for its export of agricultural goods and products, for instance, coffee and tea, as well as spices, for example, cumin, garlic, turmeric, and curry powder. So in that answer, I have identified all the products that my country exports abroad. My country is renowned. Renown is a word that means famous. My country is renowned for. My country is famous for. Remember, these are Band 9 answers, so I have to use advanced vocabulary. My country is renowned. My country is famous for its export. Remember, I said export is when you sell products abroad to other countries. Agricultural products. Agriculture means that they are products that come from farming. Farming. When you farm, when you grow them, and then you harvest them, those are agricultural goods and products. For instance, coffee and tea, as well as spices. For example, cumin, garlic, turmeric, and curry powder. Now let's move on to question 3. What can affect trade? What can affect trade? In that answer, the examiner wants you to identify some things that can affect or influence trade. Things that can make trade better or worse. Now, you can answer that question by saying, trade can be affected by a number of factors. For instance, poor weather, which might affect the availability and the price of agricultural products. The political stability of a country does also play a part, as well as its international relations with other trading partners globally. Trade can be affected by a number of factors. For instance, poor weather, which might affect the availability and the price of agricultural products. The political stability of a country does also play a part, as well as its international relations with other trading partners globally. So in that answer, I have identified a number of things that can affect trade. The first one was poor weather. When the weather is not good, that will affect the availability and the price of agricultural products. For instance, if the farmer relies on a lot of rain and then it does not rain, then it means that his harvest will be very minimal, and because of that, the price of that particular produce will be very expensive. So poor weather will affect the availability and the price of agricultural products. The other point is the political stability of a country. If a country is not politically stable, if there is war in a country, for example, then that will also affect trade. And the other one is a country's international relations with other trading partners globally. If the relationship between a particular country and the other countries is not good, then that is also going to affect trade. So remember to be very elaborate, be detailed in your answers if you want to get a Band 8 or a Band 9. Let's move on to question 4. Are imported products popular in your country? Are imported products popular in your country? Now, in that question, the examiner wants your opinion. The examiner wants to know whether in your country, people like to buy products that come from other countries. Do people in your country like to buy products that come from other countries? Remember, export is to sell your products in other countries. To import is to buy products from other countries. So export, you sell to other countries. Import, you buy from other countries. Okay? So, are imported products popular in your country? Now you can answer that question by saying, yes, majority of the people love to buy imported merchandise from abroad, such as electronics, machinery, and medical supplies. Food products, for example, processed fruits and chocolate, sell a lot too. Yes, majority of the people love to buy imported merchandise from abroad, such as electronics, machinery, and medical supplies. Food products, for example, processed fruits and chocolate, sell a lot too. So in that answer, I have made it very clear to the examiner that indeed majority of the people in my country love to buy imported merchandise. Merchandise is simply a Bant 9 word that means products or goods, okay? Imported merchandise. It means imported goods, merchandise, products or goods from abroad. Abroad means other countries, okay? Overseas. You can either say abroad, or you can say other countries, or you can say overseas. All those three words mean exactly the same. And then I gave some examples of some imported merchandise from abroad that people like to buy in my country, and that is electronics. Electronics include, for example, things that you need electricity to function. For example, your phone, your dishwasher, your washing machine. All those are examples of electronics. Your radio, your television, and then you have machinery, that is machines, and medical supplies. But also people like to buy food products, for example, processed fruits. Processed fruits are fruits that have been dried and put in a tin, and people buy them in the supermarket, okay, as processed fruits, and also chocolate. Now let's move on to question 5, and that is trade important? Is trade important? In that question, the examiner wants your opinion as to whether you think trade is important. Now you can answer that question by saying, absolutely. Trade is critical to a country's economic growth, supporting local jobs, raising people's living standards, and making affordable goods easily available. Absolutely. Trade is critical to a country's economic growth, supporting local jobs, raising people's living standards, and making affordable goods easily available. So in that question, I have identified some reasons as to why trade is important. First of all, I confirmed to the examiner that I think trade is extremely important, using the word absolutely. And then after that, I explained why. 1, trade is critical. Trade is important. Critical means extremely important to a country's economic growth. For a country to grow economically, you need trade. You need to import and export your products. Another advantage of trade is that trade makes it possible to support local jobs. It makes it possible to support jobs locally. The other thing is that it helps to raise people's standard of living. And the other advantage is that trade makes it possible. It makes affordable goods easily available. So once you have confirmed whether you think trade is important or not, then give the reasons to support your answer. Remember, this is part 3, but also in part 1, you're also expected to be detailed and elaborate in your answers. Now, this brings me to the second part of this lesson, where I'm going to give you some really helpful tips to make sure that you pass your IELTS speaking test with a very high band. Tip number 1, make sure you understand the question. If you don't understand the question, then feel free to ask the examiner, please, could you repeat the question? Please, can you repeat the question? Now, make sure you understand the question, because when you understand the question, then you do not go off topic. And how do you do that? Listen to the keyword in each of the question. In question 1, the keyword is are. Are you good in trade? Question 2, what products? So you need to identify them. Question 3, what can affect trade? The keyword there is what, so you need to identify some things that can affect trade. In question 4, are imported products popular in your country? The keyword there is are. And then in question 5, is trade important? The keyword is. So tip number 1, make sure that you understand the question. Tip number 2, make sure that for each of the questions, you provide detailed answers. Make sure you have at least 2 to 3 ideas or points for each of the questions. Be elaborate and detailed. Tip number 3, join all your ideas together, all your points together, join them all together using linking words. In my sample answers, all the words that I've written in black are linking words. In sample answer 1, I used such as. Such as is a linking word that means for example. In sample answer 2, I used for instance. For instance is a linking word that means for example. And then I used as well as. As well as is a linking word that means also. And then I used for example, and finally I used and. So if you don't want to keep repeating the same phrasal verb, the same linking word, then you can change them. So for example, for instance, and such as, those 3 mean exactly the same. Such as, for instance, for example. As well as, and also, you can also use them in the same way. Coffee and tea and spices. Coffee and tea as well as, or coffee and tea and spices. So as well as means exactly the same as and. In sample answer 3, I used for instance. For instance means for example, as I said earlier on. I also used and, also, as well as. In sample answer 4, I used such as. Remember I said such as means for example or for instance. Okay, so make sure that you use linking words in your answers. The next tip, make sure that you use a variety of sentence structures in your answers. Use simple, compound, and complex sentences. If you want to get a band 8 or a band 9, then you need to use a lot of compound and complex sentences. A simple sentence has 1 verb. A compound sentence has 2 verbs, which means it has 1 linking word. a complex sentence has 3 verbs, which means it has more than 2 linking words. Now, I'll give you some examples. The first sample answer, yes, all my friends say that I have a business mindset. That is a simple sentence. It has 1 verb. I really enjoy buying and selling goods to make a profit as a small-scale businessman trading in second-hand gadgets such as phones. That is a complex sentence. You can see it has several verbs and also it has a number of linking words such as and such as. Now, sample answer 2, my country is renowned for its export of agricultural goods and products, for instance, coffee and tea, as well as spices, for example, cumin, garlic, turmeric, and curry powder. That is a complex sentence. Remember, these are Band 9 answers. Band 9 answers have a lot of complex sentences. And as you can see in sample answer 2, I have used so many linking words. And then the next one, sample answer 3, trade can be affected by a number of factors, for instance, poor weather, which might affect the availability and the price of agricultural products. That is another complex sentence. The political stability of a country does also play a part, as well as its international relations with other trading partners globally. Another complex sentence. Sample answer 4. Yes, majority of the people love to buy imported merchandise from abroad, such as electronics, machinery, and medical supplies. Another complex sentence. Food products, for example, processed fruits and chocolate sell a lot too. That is a compound sentence. Sample answer 5. Absolutely. Trade is critical to a country's economic growth, supporting local jobs, raising people's living standards, and making affordable goods easily available. Another complex sentence. So if you want to get a Band 9, you really need to make sure that you have a lot of complex sentences, not only in your IELTS speaking, but also in your IELTS writing. This brings me to the next tip. If you want to get a very high band in your IELTS speaking test, then ensure that you use the correct vocabulary for the topic that you're talking about. In this lesson, we're talking about trade. All the words that I've underlined for you in red are the vocabulary that you need to speak about this topic. When you're talking about trade, you talk about a business mindset, buying and selling goods, making a profit, small-scale businessman, trading, second-hand gadgets, export, agricultural goods and products, spices, cumin, garlic, turmeric, curry powder, factors, poor weather, availability, price, political stability, international relations, trading partners, globally, imported merchandise, abroad, electronics, machinery, medical supplies, food products, processed fruits, chocolate, critical a country's economic growth, supporting local jobs, raising people's living standards, making affordable goods. So all that is the sort of vocabulary that you need when you're speaking about the topic of trade. The next tip is use the correct grammar. That is extremely important. Make sure you use the correct tense. Make sure that you use the correct phrasal verbs, the correct expressions, the correct prepositions. Make sure you have good subject-verb agreement. Make sure your plural and your singular is used correctly. As a matter of fact, that is the most important of them all. You need to ensure that you use good grammar when you're giving your answers, but also in writing as well, in IELTS speaking and writing. That is really what determines your band. So make sure that you use the correct tenses. If you're not very confident, if you're not very good in tenses, then have a look at my video. I have a video in my channel about all the tenses. I have actually a playlist about all the tenses that we have in English. So feel free to have a look at that video or that playlist, and that will help to improve your level in regards to your grammar. And the last tip that I'm going to give you is improve your fluency by speaking as often as you can. Read the questions in all my IELTS Speaking Test videos. Read the questions and read the sample answers, okay? Do that as many times as you can. That will help to improve your fluency. And don't worry if you have an accent. As long as it doesn't affect, as long as the examiner is able to understand you, that is the most important. But to improve your fluency, please read the questions and the sample answers many times, okay? Now, finally, for those of you who maybe you feel very nervous, okay, you feel very nervous when you are doing your IELTS speaking test, and because of that you end up failing. Maybe you're wondering, what can I do? The first tip that I'm going to give you is assume that the examiner is your favorite grandmother or your grandfather. Just pretend for a second that the examiner is your favorite grandmother or your grandfather, and relax and just begin speaking. Tip number 2, do not speak very fast, okay? Just speak slowly, because that gives you a chance to think. Tip number 3, begin your answer with a part of the question, okay? Are you good in trade? Yes, I am good in trade because, What products does your country export abroad? My country exports the following products. What can affect trade? Trade can be affected by, that gives you a chance of thinking about the answers. It gives you the chance to think about the answers. So remember, begin your answer with part of the question. Is trade important? Yes, I think that trade is important because. The next tip that will help to reduce your nervousness is practice. The more you practice, like I said earlier on, read the questions, read the sample answers. Practice, 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 because practice makes perfect. When you practice, you improve your confidence. When you practice, you develop more vocabulary, you improve your fluency. And because of that, you end up performing better because you're not nervous. The reason that people get nervous is because they're unsure. So through practice and through doing all those tips that I've given you, you should be able to pass your IELTS test with a very high band and without getting nervous at all. Now, this brings me to the last section of this lesson, where I'm going to read for you the questions and the sample answers. Are you ready? Okay, let's begin. Question 1. Are you good in trade? Yes, all my friends say that I have a business mindset. I really enjoy buying and selling goods to make a profit as a small-scale businessman trading in second-hand gadgets such as phones. Question 2. What products does your country export abroad? My country is renowned for its export of agricultural goods and products, for instance, coffee and tea, as well as spices, for example, cumin, garlic, turmeric, and curry powder. Question 3. What can affect trade? Trade can be affected by a number of factors, for instance, poor weather, which might affect the availability and the price of agricultural products. The political stability of a country does also play a part, as well as its international relations with other trading partners globally. Question 4. Are imported products popular in your country? Yes, majority of the people love to buy important merchandise from abroad, such as electronics, machinery, and medical supplies. Food products, for example, processed fruits and chocolate, sell a lot too. Question 5. Is trade important? Absolutely. Trade is critical to a country's economic growth, supporting local jobs, raising people's living standards, and making affordable goods easily available. So there you are. That's how you're supposed to answer these questions. Now, have you learned something new? Then you know what to do. Subscribe to this channel for more useful content. Remember to give this video a thumbs up and share the video on all your social media platforms. Now, thank you very much and see you in our next lesson. Bye bye.